Hello everyone, and this week we're going to be looking at anecdotes. Anecdotes are very helpful, but they can also be very harmful. So we're going to take a look at how can we use them to our benefit. What is an anecdote? I feel like the definition of an anecdote is a little bit different than what we use in typology. I feel like the meaning of it has been slightly, what's that word when you take something and you reappropriate it? I think maybe that's what I'm looking for. It's reappropriated for the typology community for a specific purpose. So according to the dictionary, an anecdote is a short, amusing, or interesting story about a real incident or person. That is, in a sense, true. We want to maintain that definition. An anecdote is true for a person, but it doesn't mean it's true for an entire group of people. So if I were to apply this then to how we use them in typology, an anecdote is serving as an illustration, a possible behavior for a particular function or animal. It is not indicative of anytime you see that particular behavior, that means that person is that function or animal. First of all, we want to start off by saying every single time that everyone can do everything. And so that's why these anecdotes are not necessarily something we want to hang our hat on and check the box and say, oh my gosh, I just saw my best friend. She did this exact behavior that I heard somebody say that's what a TI does. She must be TI. No. Again, we don't want to go based on behavior. Behavior is something everybody is going to do. This, let's say, a similar type behavior, but it might be their motivation that's a little bit different. Behavior is not indicating the personality type or the elements of their personality. We want to focus on the why. Why are they doing that behavior that somebody said that's what TIs do? It could be because that person has TI, or it could be they're human and they happen to, in this particular area in their life, they happen to do that particular thing, but it's not indicative of their entire life being TI savior. And so that's why we don't want to say that this anecdote equals this function, because this anecdote can equal a lot of different functions depending on the motivation. So you could say that so mathematically it would be that particular subset is in relation to that person. So that person is made up of all these data points and they're all scattered all over the place. When you take a look at their whole data plot scatter of themselves, you're going to notice some of those patterns that we keep talking about. And so those patterns, the ones that correlate, those are going to relate to the functions. And oh my gosh, that's like perfect for math. So maybe Ni represents a parabola, and so you're noticing, oh my gosh, I see all the points landing on this parabola for this person. I mean, yes, they're kind of scattered in other places too, but I distinctly see, based on the trends, that this person is a parabola or Ni, that kind of thing. A lot of times we want to understand these big concepts, these big ideas. A lot of times it's very abstract. It's words that really don't mean anything until you put them in context. So we try to put them in context by giving examples. Well, part of it is making sure that we understand what another person is saying, because we can kind of argue and go back and forth with abstract things. An abstract thing is not necessarily representing something that you can see, hear, touch, smell. It's not something that we can all come to an agreement on saying, this is what it means. And so that's where the sensory kind of provides a little bit more clarity. But then on the other hand, the sensory is always going to run up a little bit short when it comes to really understanding the entire picture. So somebody might say, oh, I know dogs. Dogs are brown. Oops. Because maybe that's their only experience in looking at dogs. And they wouldn't necessarily be wrong. Dogs are brown, but they're also other colors. But it gives us a common language to understand. But then it also can be very limiting. And that's exactly what anecdotes do. They are illustrative of what is happening, what the function look like, possibly in reality, but it's not indicative. So the big idea about anecdotes is that what you really want to do with them is they are, like I said, illustration, because at its core, it's illustrating something, but it doesn't have to always look like exactly that sensory thing that you're seeing. If you hear an anecdote, you'll want to distill it into the big idea, the big abstract idea that is being put forth by the anecdote. And that is what you hold on to. That big idea can look like many different sensory anecdotes. And so that's where you want to keep track. If you see this big idea and you see the person and they are now checking a lot of different sensory boxes because they keep doing those things and it's all around that big idea, then you want to say, okay, well, there's some weight to these anecdotes because it's not just a couple things, because it's a big trend. Dave and Shan have used an analogy. I take it as an analogy. I know that a lot of people have taken it very sensorily as, oh, SI, this is what SI means, is by doing this sensory example. And that would be organizing your fridge. Organizing the fridge is an anecdote. It is an illustration of how SI could manifest. Now, does that mean that everybody who has an organized fridge is someone who has SI? Is it even SI savior, SI in their stack? Could be. Does it have to be? No, because it's just illustrating an example that, and if I distill it down to the main idea, SI is all about organizing sensory things. And if you think about what you put in your refrigerator, you personally chosen specific things to put in your refrigerator, and you have organized it in a particular way that is very unique to you. If you go to somebody else's house, they might have their milk in a different place, their eggs go somewhere else. It's because people have organized it in a very particular way that they want to organize it. So all those little descriptors fit with SI. It's very personal about what sensory you are holding on to. It's very personal about how you organize it. And those all refer to an introverted function, and it's dealing with sensory. And so that is the big idea about SI. Now, can it be organizing your refrigerator? Yes, but it doesn't have to be. Just a few reminders when it comes to thinking about typing people. Like I mentioned before, everyone can do everything, so that's something to keep in mind. And organizing the sensory has many, many looks. And there's many reasons why you want to organize the sensory. Maybe they are organizing the sensory because they want to preserve energy later on. Or maybe they're actually organizing the sensory not based on the sensory. The sensory is just the means by which to engage more of a abstract look at whatever the case may be. Like the refrigerator. Maybe your system that you use to organize the refrigerator is not necessarily sensory based, but more abstract idea based. And again, if you are typing yourself or you are typing someone else, you want to keep track of what is happening 51% of the time or more, because that's going to lead you to what the actual saviors are. We all do all these behaviors, but when it comes to the trends, that's what you're going to be looking for. All right, that is our video for today when it comes to anecdotes, where they really fit in our understanding of personality. They do help us understand personality, but they can also be harmful if we abuse them and we overuse them. So just keep that in mind when you hear another anecdote. If it's some sort of an example that you're hearing, bring it back to what is the big idea. Distill it down to the big idea, and then you can use that big idea in multiple ways. I hope that you have a great week, and I will see you next time. Bye. So my hair kind of looks like Lorraine in Back to the Future. I just watched that the other day because Netflix said that it was going to be no longer available after December 31st, and I thought, one last time to get my Back to the Future kick in. It could be harmful or it could be hurtful. I mean, they're both bad.